showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Hey, what's up, friends? Welcome to episode 184 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. I am your host. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for listening. However you got here, however you're consuming it, thank you so much for giving the podcast a listen. Hey, this episode, Mishell Livio joins me. We sit down, we chat, we have a great conversation. We find out what it's like to be a radio DJ at Alt 94.9, a local radio station here in Salt Lake City. We also talk about her acting career, her comedy, what it was like when she moved to Salt Lake City, as well as some of the other travels that Mishell's been up to in the last little while. Great conversation. I'm going to be playing that here in just a minute. Let's get some news and information about the podcast out of the way, though, really quick. Like I mentioned on social media a few days ago, I got a big announcement on this episode of the podcast. Well, that announcement kind of leaked onto social media, mostly my doing. But let me tell you about it. I'm going to be having the first I Am Salt Lake Live. It's going to be a live podcast at Club 50 West, right in downtown Salt Lake City. Mark it on your calendars. It's going to be Friday, October 16th. Starts at 8 o'clock. Doors should open about 7:30, so make sure to get there early, get a seat. The show's going to start about 8 o'clock. I have three awesome individuals, three awesome guests that I'm going to be interviewing. We have Carrie Jackson from Radio from Hell and the Geek Show podcast. I have Levi Rounds, a local Salt Lake City comedian, stand-up comedian, as well as Paul Dwayne from The Paul Dwayne Show. They're going to be joining me on this edition of I Am Salt Lake Live. Again, that's October 16th. It's a Friday night, 8 o'clock. Bring a friend, bring your wife, your husband, whoever. Get your babysitter, set up early, and make that a fun night to hit up downtown Salt Lake City at Club 50 West. And join me. It's going to be a really good time. You can find out more about that if you're following any of the Twitter or Facebook. I'm going to be giving more information about that show over the next little while. So you're going to want to pay attention and stay up to date on that. I also want to thank Jordan Mazziotti for some new logo design work. You might notice a new logo for the podcast in iTunes or however you're listening to this podcast, as well as the poster that he did for the event at 50 West. Thank you so much, Jordan. I think you did a top-notch job. You could check out all of his design work at Mazziotti Design. That's MAZZIOTTIDESIGN, MazzioTtiDesign.com. Check out the new logo stuff. We're going to be revamping the website here shortly. All kinds of fun stuff here in I Am Salt Lake World. So thank you so much, everybody, for your support. Drop me an email. Tell me what you think of all this. IamSaltLake@gmail.com. Hey, I'm going to quit talking. I'm going to jump into the conversation that I had with Mishell Livio. We recorded it at American Musicians Radio right here in Salt Lake City. Many thanks to them for letting me use their office space to record the episodes of my podcast. Many thanks to John Farmer. All right, I'm going to quit rambling. Join me now as I talk to Mishell and find out her story. Thank you so much. Mishell Livio, you're an actor and a morning radio DJ host on Alt 94.9.
That's correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming and joining me on this episode of the podcast and chatting and sharing your story a little bit. What's Alt 94.9? What is that? My mind's blank now.
It's an alternative rock station. So before it's just like pop rock, if you will. And then before that, it used to be Z-Rock, it's called active rock,
okay,
which is more like Metallica and...
I don't listen to a lot of radio, so I'm a podcast guy.
Okay.
So this is radio and podcast mashup, like heads buddy, you know?
Right. The internet and the radio waves collide.
Where do you record at? Like, where's your
We're in
offices?
South Salt Lake. So
Salt Lake.
Yeah, we're at 3300 South, 3 West.
Oh, you're right across from like RC Willey there.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I've been in there. In the
RC Willey?
No, not at the K-Bear.
Yes, yeah.
K-Bear.
So that's in our cluster is what it's called. So we're K-Bear, we're K-Bull, we are B98, Alt 94.9. I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, and K-Fan, which is a sports station, sports talk.
Well, awesome. We'll get into that here in just a second. I want to find out a little bit of your backstory because you're not from Utah.
No, I'm from Arizona.
You were born and raised in Arizona.
Yes.
Whereabouts in Arizona?
In Tucson.
Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah. If you've ever seen a movie called Hamlet 2, Tucson is where dreams go to die. That's a direct quote from that movie.
And big family, small family?
A decent-sized family. I have a sister. She's older.
Yeah.
And my dad has 2 brothers and a sister, and my mom has 2 brothers.
Okay.
They have like children and such.
And I mean, so growing up, were you always like a theatrical type of person? I'm just trying to kind of get the backstory on Mishell here a little bit.
My parents owned a mariachi restaurant.
Okay.
And it was a dinner, theater type thing. And so my dad would do 2-3 shows a night, every night. And they owned the restaurant like pretty much until I was about 13, I think they sold it. And so when I could walk, they put me up on the stage and I would sing maybe 1 or 2 songs. And they were in Spanish, but I didn't know what I was saying. So, I might as well have just been like, Guantanamuca de la Padula. That's basically what I just sort of memorized the words and I didn't know what I was saying. And so that was like my first performance. And my dad also owned dojos around town. He's a 10th degree black belt. He teaches internationally. And so I started doing karate when I was about 3 years old, but because my dad was so high ranking, a lot of the kids would always say, "Why aren't you amazing? Why aren't you so great?" And so I just started being silly and messing around. And I think that's, instead of taking it seriously and being like this action star, I was just this goofball, making people laugh so that they weren't so mean to me.
But you were taking karate lessons from your dad.
Yes.
Did you want to take it, or that's all you knew?
I just did that.
Oh.
They just put me in the classes and were like, "This is what you're doing. Goodbye."
Well, no, I'm intrigued. Karate, because I tried to take karate when I was younger. And
what kind of karate did you do?
Kenpo karate.
That's what I did.
Okay, Kenpo karate.
Yeah.
I was in Ventura, California when I took it.
Uh-huh.
And
who did you take it from?
Her name was Barbara Hale.
Oh.
Did you know Barbara Hale?
No.
Yeah.
But my dad probably does. Do you know
Yeah.
if it was IKKA or AKKA? American Kenpo Karate?
I think it was because it was Ed, wasn't it
Ed Parker.
Ed Parker.
Okay.
He was her teacher.
Oh, then you might have been in one of the legit studios.
Yeah.
Because that's who my dad's.
This was my aunt still to this day takes karate. She's in her 70s.
Yeah.
And when I go visit her in California, I'll wake up at like 6 a.m. and you'll see her in her backyard doing like spin kicks.
Yeah.
70-year-old woman just.
Block, kick, chop.
Yeah. So do you still do karate then?
No, I fell out of it.
How far did you get, if you don't mind?
I'm a purple belt.
A purple belt?
Yeah. So it goes white, yellow, orange, purple, and then blue, green, 3 browns. Is this right? 3 browns, 10 blacks? I got to purple.
Do you miss it at all?
Yes and no. I wish that I'd taken it more seriously. I wish I'd stretched more.
Like stretched your body.
Yes, stretched my body. I wish I could do I wish I could do the splits. I wish I could parkour.
Yeah.
I like to say that I can parkour, but I cannot.
Have you ever had to use karate? Have you ever gotten in a fight?
I used to get in fights when I was little all the time because I just thought I was so badass.
Yeah.
And then when I was older, when I first started in college, I just got punched a couple of times and I was like, okay,
enough.
I can take a punch, but I don't want to instigate people anymore. This is not fun for me. And so I just stopped being a douchebag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to continue on the list here, so you're singing in your parents' restaurant and doing. Were you in high school plays at all or no?
Yes.
Okay. So
I did musicals.
You did some
and
musicals.
Straight theater. Yeah.
Theater through high school, and then you went on to college or no?
I did. So
I'm just trying to get the timeline here up until today here.
Yeah, I tried to get in when I was 7 years old. I was 5, 6, something like that. I was watching Sesame Street and I was like, oh, I could do that. And so I dove into the television.
Uh-huh.
I split my eye open. I started bleeding everywhere. And I was like, that's not how you get on television. I learned. And so I went through the yellow pages and I found agencies. And I said, oh, okay, I need a talent agent. And so
And how old were you when you did
I think
this?
I was like 7 or 8.
7 or 8. You think you need a talent agent?
Yeah. And so I called them up, and they were like, we need to speak to an adult because you're obviously a child. And so my mom brought me to the agency, but it was Arizona, and there just wasn't a ton of stuff for me to do.
Sure.
I think they sent me out for like maybe a local PSA that didn't pay. And so I took a couple of classes and I was like, well, okay, I need to go to California. So I started saving money and I was like, okay, once I graduate high school, I'm going to California. And so I went to a decent high school. You had to like test to get into it. And I graduated and I had a full scholarship to the University of Arizona. And I said, I'm moving to California. Like, that's it. That's what I'm doing. And my parents were like, don't be stupid. You have a full scholarship, dorm, food, books, everything is paid for. Just go get your education, just graduate, and then go to California. And I was like, fine, I'll go for 1 year. And so I went for 1 year, and then I said, great, moving to California, guys. And my mom said, no, you have to go to college. I won't let you move to California unless you go to college. And so I just opened a map and just picked like Los Angeles. And I went, oh, this college is great, Mom. Like, it's so good. And it wasn't. It was a horrible college.
What college?
But it was,
You don't want to say it.
Yeah, it was Cal State Los Angeles, and they have trimesters, and it was just not great. It was not a good college, and it was very expensive because I was out of state.
Well, you're safe. I didn't go there, so.
Okay.
You're not talking crap on my school.
Probably no one in Utah knows what it is. And it just sucked. So I went there for a semester and like just wasted a ton of money. But I was in California, so I thought, okay, I'm done.
You got to where you wanted to go. You're living the dream.
Right. So I was like, I'm out of here, Mom. Like, I'm just done with college. And I started doing modeling. I got on a modeling show. I was looking for America's Next Top Model. And I thought, that's going to be super hard to get on. And I found America's Next Top Model Latina. And I was like, much easier. Let's shoot for that.
Yeah.
And I got on that show. And spoiler alert, I got 5th. And I got a modeling contract, and so I was modeling, and I was making money that way.
And were you enjoying it?
And yeah, it was fine. It was fun. I was making money, and because I had money, then I could then go to do other things. And I learned about this improv thing, and I was like, "What the hell is improv?" I started doing stand up, and some of the stand ups were like, "Oh, we do improv too." And I was like, "What the hell is improv? What the hell is Second City and Upright Citizens Brigade? I've never heard of these things." And so I went to those schools, and I fell in love with it. And I started doing improv comedy, sketch comedy, and stand-up.
So you're doing it all. Introduced to a brand new world, doing modeling. Wow.
Right. And so then I stopped. The modeling paid for all of the comedy. And I stopped modeling, and I started just pursuing comedy.
Why is it? Why? Just...
And because...
Your heart was more in it?
Yeah, I think so. And I just didn't feel like modeling anymore. I just didn't want to do it. My heart wasn't in it. And although the money, I should have probably kept doing it. The money was much better. And so then I did various, TV shows. I was on Days of Our Lives.
Yeah, well, no, you have a heck of an IMDb.
Yeah, and I did a few movies and stuff, and then I landed this.
We can't just skim past Days of Our Lives here.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I know nothing about the soap opera, but
soap operas are amazing. So they get shit on.
Were you hoping we'd skim by this?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Soap operas, people don't give them credit. Those people, okay, all right. So it's not the greatest script in the entire world, and it's not the greatest acting in the whole world. But you know what? They memorize 20 pages a day. These people are insane.
Yeah.
And they get one take.
And that's it.
And that's it. Done. Print. Moving on.
Can you improvise at all? Are they allowed? No. To the word.
Pretty word perfect.
Yeah.
And if you go on a movie set or a TV set, I mean, they spend 12 hours on 2 lines. It just takes forever, and they give them so much leeway. These soap opera actors.
Okay.
You got to give them credit. Of course, it's not the most amazing thing in the world. They get one take, and they're memorizing 20 pages. Can you imagine? That's amazing.
So how many episodes? So what was your role?
I was a waitress in the Brady pub. And so I would say things like,
Is that a pretty big part or no?
No.
Okay.
No, it was like, can I get you anything else? How was that? Good morning. Stuff like that. Very small, but it was, I was off and on for like 2 years.
And you were living in California at this time?
And I was living in California. And it was neat, and my parents and uncles used to watch it, and they used to record the whole episode just to see me in this one scene.
This was
one
2010, line. If I remember correctly, right?
That sounds about right.
IMDb page?
Sure.
I tried to read a little bit about you.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Do people still recognize you from it?
Oh. They usually are like, oh, that's neat if I say that I did it. But yeah. I would be shocked if somebody recognized me from it. So anyway,
you're doing movies as well at this because you have quite a movie list too.
Yeah,
the
TV weird thing about movies is they lose funding when they don't get finished, and so you'll do a movie and then you never hear from them. Like I did a movie probably 8 years ago, and I just heard back from them like, "Hey, we're shopping this around," and I was like, "Okay, great, cool."
So do you get paid though before that?
Yeah, you get paid before.
So you don't have to wait 8 years to get a paycheck.
Right.
You're like,
right.
What?
Yeah, you get paid before. But you want to see it, you want it to happen because ideally you'll get some sort of notoriety out of it and it'll help you in your career. So if it never comes out, nobody ever sees it, then it's as if it didn't happen.
What movie would you say is the most well known that somebody might know?
Probably nothing.
I swear, didn't you do one with Steven Spielberg? Didn't you?
Me?
Yeah. I thought I read that on your IMDb.
My
mind's blank.
A lot of people do this. So I was in a series called Minority Report, which was minorities reporting the news.
Oh, okay. I was just scanning through.
And you're not the only person that's done that.
Okay.
Because they're like, you were in Minority Report. Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Damn, girl. And usually I'm like,
okay.
I sure was.
Okay.
And
okay. I just skimmed through it real quick. I was like, okay, we'll get into that. We'll chat.
Yeah. People get super excited about that. I was not in the Tom Cruise Minority Report. I did do PSAs for Scientology. I don't know what it's about either.
So you're not a Scientologist? No.
Have you seen, this is not about me, but have you seen the Scientology documentary?
I haven't, no.
You should watch it.
I should check it out. What's the name of it?
Crazy.
Scientology documentary.
I think it's called Going Clear. It's on HBO.
Okay.
It's so crazy, but you just can't stop watching it. Because so Scientology, they tell you that it's like this whole psychological way of living, right? And so they make you go in there and there are these auditors and they're like psychologists and they record you talking and they just have you, it's like confession, and they just have you confess all of your deepest, darkest secrets to them, and they write them down and they record it and they put it in these vaults, and then later, and they take all your money so that you can get through the levels of Scientology. And then if you try to leave the church, then they use all of these records against you. And they're like, well, if you leave, then we will tell everyone that you did this and that and this and that and that. And so then you can never leave. And they just keep taking your money and they keep making you feel bad about it is so interesting. And then you watch, and like Tom Cruise and John Travolta are in it. And it seems like Tom Cruise like got awesome things out of it. And John Travolta, it seems like he's in there because they have stuff against him that they could use against him. And so he's just stuck.
Poor guy.
I know.
And I went through a John Travolta phase, and we won't get into that on this podcast. But
yeah, you can tell by the way he uses his walk.
Look at come on, you got Saturday Night Fever,
Urban Cowboy,
and then you got Phenomenon, Pulp Fiction. I mean, you got the guy's a brilliant actor.
Mm-hmm. What's the one where he plays an angel? Michael.
Yeah, Michael. What? Yeah, it was Michael. Anyway, radio though.
Yes.
Because you did radio in Arizona or no? What got you into? Let's talk. How did you get into radio? I find that so fascinating because I love radio, talk radio, the whole 9 yards. So, what got you into radio from acting, comedy?
So I ran out of money, and so did my boyfriend. And so we said, all right, forget this town. Forget Los Angeles. We're going to take a break. And so we were going to take a 3-month break in Tucson, Arizona. We were going to take a 3-month break in Chicago. That's where he's from. And we would be refreshed. And then we would go back to Los Angeles and hit it some more. He's a writer and a musician. And so we got to Arizona, and like the first day I got back to Arizona, I went to a party of my friends, and she worked at a radio station as nothing. She just sort of worked at the radio station as basically a paid intern, if you will. She did promotions. And she said, hey, have you ever thought about radio? There's a radio station in town. They're looking for a morning show host. And I was like, hello, how are you?
Yeah.
Like no pleasantries whatsoever. That was the first thing that she said to me. And I thought, radio is still a medium. People still I just didn't even think about radio ever. And so I was like, okay, sure, I'll submit my stuff. Why not? And so I submitted, and I didn't really hear anything back. And we were about to leave. We had been there for 2.5 months. And she said, did you hear anything back? And I said, no, I didn't hear anything back. We're going to get out of here. And she said, well, resubmit. I was like, oh, okay, fine. So I resubmitted, and I got a response. And so I went through a whole long audition process, and I got it. And
like what was the process? I mean, a couple things.
They have you on the air, and they see how you do an interview with the other co-host. You do an interview with, the program director is what they're called, which is the boss, I guess, of that station. And they see what you're like. They make sure that you're not a murderer or a
and they could tell that by
addict.
talking to you.
Yeah. It's a lot.
She's not a murderer.
Right. It's a long interview. It's like a good hour. It's as long as this podcast. And then they try you out on air, and they want to see if you can handle it. If whatever they're talking about, if you can respond to it. And you do that multiple times, and usually they try out multiple people. And depending on who does the best, they hire. And I did the best, and they hired me. And so I was in Arizona we were there for about 1.5 years. And in Utah, they were looking for a morning show. They were scoping out throughout the country, and they found us. And
so they approached you. Utah 94.9 approached you. You didn't even apply.
Right.
Wow.
I'm not sure. I think that my partner, I think he was putting out feelers because he wanted to get to a bigger market. And somehow one of those feelers ended up in Salt Lake, ended up here. And because he had been doing radio for a long time beforehand. So he had a decent amount.
Your partner in Arizona.
Yeah.
Now, is he your partner here now too in Salt Lake? Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys moved together.
Yeah. And now we've been here for about 1 year. It's crazy.
Wow. So what is 6 to 10, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.?
6 to 10 Monday through Friday. And then we do a best of the week on Saturday from 6 to 10.
Well, let's actually back up so you moved to Salt. Have you ever been to Salt Lake before then?
No.
What was your first impression of Salt Lake?
It's pretty similar to everywhere, because my whole life I've lived in a desert, in a valley, surrounded by mountains.
It's a little cooler here, though,
and so,
right?
yes, it's cooler here. It snows. But the winter that we had wasn't very bad.
This last winter.
Right. And so
this last winter was your first winter here?
It was my first winter.
At all.
Period. Yeah, this was my first, there's snow, and it's not just in the mountains. It's outside of my house as well.
So you thought, okay, this is pretty cool. I could deal with this. I mean, what did you think of the city life or the culture or any of that?
I live in Salt Lake. I mean, everyone says, oh, it's really conservative. And it is, I didn't really know any Mormons before, and now I do. But when I was in California, I didn't really know any Armenians. And then I met them, and I was like, oh, that's a person from Armenia. Okay, cool. Yeah. And I was raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic school, and I was raised pretty conservatively. So I'm like, yeah, this isn't that much weirder.
No.
Or different, or they don't drink as much, but I'm not a huge drinker. It is inconvenient not being able to go to the liquor store on a Sunday.
You buy it on Saturday.
But you buy
it's
it
not that difficult.
any other day of the week.
I think like us Utahns that have been here for a while, we get used to that. Okay, it's Pioneer Day. Buy it the day before. It's
Pioneer Day is fun.
Yeah, it's an extra free holiday here in the state, and you're going to take it and run with it.
Yeah, I got to host a parade.
You hosted the last Pioneer Day parade?
Mm-hmm. Well, they put you in. We were one of the sections that hosted. Yeah, it was fun. Parades are.
Was that your first Pioneer Day?
Yes.
We go all out in this
Yeah,
state.
you do.
Yeah, I think even more than July 4th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I usually use that morning to sleep in, but so your morning radio 6 to 10. Like, I mean, what do you talk about? Is it just your typical morning radio? Do you add what makes you unique?
Yeah, it's pretty typical morning radio. We like to call ourselves lifestyle radio, and so we talk about the normal celeb news, regular news, sports, stuff like that. But then we also talk about what's going on in people's lives and what people are watching and how it affects them. And so we were talking about one of the things we talked about today was it's a TLC show, and it's like these gigantic women. They're like over 6'5", and what their life is like. And then we talked about, hey, what are discrepancies in your relationships? Have you ever dated someone that's like way taller than you or way shorter than you? How did it affect you? Stuff like that.
You have to get up pretty early for 6 a.m. Does that get rough?
Yes.
I mean, because
it's not fun.
Right when you get on at 6 a.m., you got to be energetic. You got to be ready to go. You can't be like, oh, I'm waking up.
Yeah, we also prep the show. So I get up at 3:30.
Oh.
I get to work at 4. And then, because we have to find out, you need to know what's going on in the world in order to intelligently talk about what's going on in the world, have opinion about it, and then relate it back to yourself, as well as ask the audience how they relate to it. So we get there 2 hours before at 4 to prep. And we do the show 6 to 10, and then we usually stay 2 to 3 hours afterwards and try to create some sort of funny commercial or parody song or some sort of produced bit that we can do the next day. We try to get callers and interviews and stuff like that.
So I'm probably keeping you up past your bedtime then.
I take naps.
Okay.
So usually I go home between 12 and 2. And I watch something on Netflix, and I go into a food coma, take a nap, and then I live my nightlife. So I've been doing radio for about 3 years, but because it seems like you have the day, you go to sleep, and you have your night, it feels like I've lived 6 years in 3, because it just feels like a different day. Night feels like its own entity. I go to sleep, and then morning feels like its own entity. It's really weird.
Well, at least you've been able to create it so you can do it that way. Like I'm not the best with naps.
No,
like
I'm not great at it either.
If I take a nap, then if I don't wake up right, I'm no good.
Yeah, usually, like I didn't get in a nap today. I tried really hard, so a lot of times
I couldn't tell.
Thank you.
You seem like you're doing great.
Yeah, a lot of times I just sit in my bed and stare at the ceiling and think about life. And I'll write poetry or something. I try to go to sleep, but it doesn't always work. And usually by the end of the week, because I haven't had naps, I just pass out.
By the weekend, you're just ready to
die.
To pass out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you play music at all? No, it's just all. Is it all talk in the morning?
Yeah, we play music. So we talk for, depending, anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes. And then we will play 1 or 2 songs.
Okay.
Then we'll talk 2 to 10 minutes. We'll play two songs.
I got you. Because I was wondering how that would be like if you got offered like, okay, you get this position with just playing music. I didn't know if you would enjoy that over the talk part or
yeah.
Because I know that would be tough especially if you didn't like the music. You'd be like, gosh,
right.
I hate this music. It's horrible.
Yeah. Usually we'll have our first break and we know what we're going to talk about. We talk, and then we go to a song, and then we say, okay, what's our next topic? We have it on our schedule. Okay, what's our in, what's our out, what's your opinion, what's my opinion? Okay, does anybody have a joke about this? Does anyone have an anecdote or a story? Okay, you do? All right, great. So you'll probably be the out. And we discuss it like that. And we have about 4 minutes to prepare, and then we go on air, we do it. And sometimes we got off air and we were like, that was a pile of dirty shit. It was terrible. That was awful. It just didn't work out. And then sometimes you're like, that was the most amazing. I don't know why I turned into Aziz Ansari. That was the most amazing thing ever. Oh no.
So you mentioned you had a partner that you do radio. What's his name?
His name is Todd Fuchs.
Todd Fuchs.
Yes.
How long have you been doing radio with him?
3 years. But he was born in Maryland. He's Jewish and bald. And he just had a baby, Avi. And so he was in Bethesda, Maryland, and then he moved to one of the Carolinas, north, maybe south. He did stuff in New York. He did stuff in Chicago. And then he was in Tucson.
So, I mean, you've always done radio with him? Or
Yes.
No? Okay.
Yeah,
so
I've only done radio with him.
Have you ever done it solo?
I did a weekend shift,
Okay.
and that's when you talk over the music.
Okay.
And that's much different than stopping down and having an actual talk show.
Well, that's what I was wondering, kind of doing something like that with somebody versus by yourself, because you have to have a chemistry
Right.
between that person.
Yes.
Have you always had a good chemistry?
Yes and no. You're with this person, 10 to 12 hours a day, 4, 5, sometimes 7 days a week, because we have to do stuff on the weekends. And so sometimes you can't help it. You want to kill that person.
So what do you do to not kill him? I'm looking for tips here.
You talk. Communication is really important. Respect is really important. If they're having a bad day, you can tell. You're like, okay, something is not quite right with you.
Yeah.
What's going on? And you just gotta get it out, get it over with, and move on, because you have to do a show, and you just have to get over it, or else the show suffers.
Do you hang out much outside of work or no?
Not too much, because we're just so busy. We just do. He just got married and he just had a kid. So his kid is 30 days old. So he was dealing with a pregnant new wife. And usually I do stuff at night. So I'll do improv or sketch or.
Do you have kids?
No.
No kids?
Not yet.
Not
No.
yet. I was just wondering how, because you said he has kids. I was wondering how that was dealing with that, with the schedule, the type of schedule you have.
It's probably really difficult. Yeah. He gets less sleep than he did before. But you also have this little person that you're watching. It seems like he's slowly changing. You can see it. He's being affected by this tiny human that he created. Do you have kids?
I no kids yet. No kids. I have no kids.
Get on it. What are you doing?
Well, yeah, we'll. That's for another time and place.
Okay.
But in all your years of radio, in all of your, is there like a person that you've got to meet or interview that sticks out, or that you're like, gosh, that was cool that I got to interview that person, or that person came on the radio? I don't know, because I imagine you do interviews, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I got to meet Jim Gaffigan and got to talk to him.
There you go.
And he was super cool.
Was that here in Utah?
And it was in Arizona.
Arizona.
And there's a lot of comedians that I was just like, oh, this
Were you
is so
starstruck?
cool.
Were you like, oh my gosh, Jim? Was he sitting in the studio with you?
You get so excited about it, yeah. And we talked to Jim Brewer. He was pretty cool. We just talked to Rob Schneider, and I had auditioned to.
Oh, that's right. He just was at Wise Guys not too long ago. Yeah.
I had auditioned to be his wife on a sitcom that he was on, and so he called me his almost sitcom wife. So that was neat.
Any musicians that you've chatted with?
We just talked to Hosier. That was pretty neat, just because he's so huge right now. And just listening to his accent, because he's Irish, was fun.
Any tips? Like, how do you, like, I've heard different things, from radio people, like, oh, if you smile, then when you're talking on the microphone. And I mean, what kind of tips would you give people like that?
As stupid as that sounds, it does actually work.
Yeah.
Because it's similar to this, right? It's just you and another person in a small room. And sometimes you forget, oh, thousands of people can hear me.
It's weird to think about that, right?
Weird.
Like, because you're like, gosh, there's people in their car. They're going to work. They're listening to me in their car right now.
Right. And so a lot of times I will print out pictures of an audience, and I'll just put them up randomly around
That's a great idea.
Just to remind myself, hey, people can hear you. It's not just you messing around with your friends. You're supposed to be entertaining people.
I like that. I'm going to actually have to steal that, especially sometimes like when I do intros and stuff for the podcast, it's usually just myself sitting in a room.
Yeah.
And that's been the toughest part
about
doing the podcast, is just there by myself.
Right. You don't have an audience to play off of. That was one of the hardest things for me transitioning into radio, because I had done theater and then I went to, TV and film, which is a smaller audience, but at least you have the crew. So in general, I would try to make the crew laugh. I would try to affect them in some way. You can still sort of see them out of the corner of your eye. With radio, it's just you and another person in a room at 5:00 in the morning making fart jokes, hoping that people laugh.
Yeah.
And so
there's a delay, isn't there? Like a
there's a 7 second delay.
I was going to say, because I mean, have you slipped up, said like the F-bomb or...
You can't say butthole.
You can't say butthole. That's a Utah thing, though,
Which
right?
I didn't know.
Is that a Utah? Or all radio?
I think that's just radio. You can't say butthole. And I said butthole, and we had to bleep it out. Like, my partner ran, and he pushed the button, and he said, you can't say that.
What?
And I went, butthole? And he was like, you can't, he was like, you can't say that. I was like, really? That's so stupid.
Yeah, well, I guess, that's...
He was
but
like,
you could say butt.
You can say butt. You can say hole. You can't say butthole. So
As everybody's listening now, they're like, well, she said butthole.
12 times.
Yeah, but that's...
But yeah.
Any other wild words like that?
But if you...
I'm gonna just talk all the people that come on the show. Hey, you know what? You can say butthole here.
Yeah.
This is this is free ground for that.
Most things that were, I mean, you're I'm a little kid saying bad words.
Sure.
But you can say bitch. You can say ass. You can't say shit. You can't say the F word.
And who comes up with that? Like who decides? Okay, this word is okay.
The
this
FCC?
word isn't. Do you think they're getting more relaxed with time? I mean, obviously, because probably 10 years ago you couldn't say those words.
You couldn't say bitch or ass, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's watch television. There's a lot of things where you're like, whoa, they can say that?
Yeah.
It's with radio too sometimes. I go, can we? And I'll ask beforehand, depending on what the topic is that we're talking about, because so we can get a little crass. I'll ask like, hey, can I say, this? And Fook will be like, you probably shouldn't.
Have they... One thing I noticed with the podcast, and I might be completely wrong with this, and I'll probably get emails from people being like, oh, I wish you wouldn't swear on your podcast. But one thing I found, so when I started the podcast, I kind of kept it it was, no explicits, very clean podcast.
Yeah. PG-13.
And then when I found I got relaxed and I allowed people that came on the show to hey, language isn't a problem, my numbers kind of went up.
Really?
And what I'm wondering is if radio would realize that, maybe their numbers would go up.
I don't know because there are some advertisers that probably would not
pull away.
Yeah, would pull away.
Really?
Would
especially in a market probably like Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough market.
But I don't know.
It's hard, and it's hard.
Do any of that stuff.
Again, it goes back to even with the podcast where you're like, okay, maybe my numbers just went up because I had more episodes out. The podcast got momentum.
Right.
I don't know. It's hard to know. What do you think of radio? Do you think radio, the direction? Kind of, we were chatting before we were recording. Even, do you feel? I mean, it's going to always be there. I guess we're going to have it in our cars.
Yeah.
But do you think people?
There you go.
Do you find people going the direction of podcasts? Or is that a tough thing for you to answer because of your position?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I talk to enough people.
Sure.
I don't ask them, so do you like my show or do you like podcasts better?
Yeah.
I just don't.
Can you podcast your show?
We usually grab segments.
Sure.
2 or 3 from the show that we think are decent and we put them online. So yeah, I mean we could podcast the show.
Do you listen to podcasts?
Not
really.
That many.
Like, what do you listen to? You're in your car? Because I've had radio people on the show, and they're like, "Gosh, it's hard to listen to music because that's work."
Huh.
And I was wondering how that was for you.
Probably because I'm fairly new to it.
Sure.
I listen to radio, and I listen to how things are edited, and I listen to the transitions that people do. And now it's so weird that before I worked in radio, I would usually go, someone's talking, gross. And I would change the station. And now, if music is on, a lot of times I'll be like, where are the people talking? And I change the station. It's so weird how you view things so differently from when you have perspective. And now I'm listening to different things.
Are you still acting?
Yes.
You're still doing some performing?
I do have an agent in town, and I just did Grease at the Midvale Main Street Theater. I played Rizzo. And I've done a few plays. I just did a commercial. So, yeah.
A commercial for... Are you allowed to talk about it?
It was Select Health, but I don't think it's going to air here. It was very random. They said it's going to air in Idaho and Wisconsin. And I was like, okay.
But you recorded it here? Yeah,
but we filmed it here.
Are you still looking like, I guess your agency, I mean, like movies and stuff like that.
Sure.
I was just wondering, as an actor who was in California versus Utah, if you found...
there's much more here.
Much more work here.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
There's just a huge art scene here. I think Sundance is here, so there's all of these people that just want so badly to create stuff and have it, blow up. And people are really into creating their own stuff. There is a flutist.
Yeah, so if you hear that in the background, there's a flutist in the building. I should get them on the podcast and discuss their flute career.
Yeah.
What got them into fluting? Do you play any instruments?
And why do they flute in random hallways?
Maybe they're the Pied Piper.
Not really. No, I don't really play any instruments.
I couldn't remember if we got into that.
I own a ukulele, which is basically a guitar for Ant-Man.
Sure.
But I don't. I play it okay. I can fake that I'm playing it.
So what, so you're acting, you're radio, you're still doing comedy here in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
What motivates you? What keeps you going with all of this?
You just, you want to make it big, I guess. One of my first and biggest inspirations was Lucille Ball. And so she started out as a model and I was like, okay, done. Great. Doing that. And then she went into radio. And I was like, done. Great. Doing that. And then it took her until she was in her 40s to get her sitcom. And if you watch I Love Lucy, she's not great. And if you watch any of her movies, she's not good. She's sort of terrible. And even on I Love Lucy, the whole show is about her having no talent and never getting into Ricky's show. And still, every episode, she tries with all her might. And that's... she is the ultimate, if you just go for it with everything that you have, eventually it will work out.
Do you feel like everything you do kind of helps the other, though?
Do I think that I'm horribly untalented?
No. Like being a comedian, being an actor helps you on the radio. Being on the radio helps you to be a comedian. They all kind of bounce off of each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you kind of, you're just this, personality, kind of keeping that going, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think doing comedy keeps me sharp for being on the radio because you're bantering and it's live.
Yeah.
And you can't rewind it. You have no takebacks. What you say is what has happened and people will hear it. And so the more practice that you get and the more you get out there and the more you keep your mind going and your mind fresh and you waka, 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 the more you do that, the better it'll work out for you.
Yeah. Let's talk. I always.
That was my Fozzie Bear impression.
No, I like it. What's your best impression then? What's your best impression?
I do. Well, I don't know if they're the best in the world, but I do accents.
Okay.
So, I will talk in a British accent, for example. I do this one. So this is Jason Statham.
Do
you do these on the radio in the morning?
Yeah. And
oh my gosh, this one's Kim Kardashian, for sure. Oh my gosh.
And how do you discover that you can do these? You just, I'm going to be Kim Kardashian. I mean, how do you?
Give it shoot. Oh man, I don't even know, yo. You just be acting silly and stuff. Shoot. You just be doing it, man. I don't know.
I know, I like it.
You're just weird, you just find things.
Okay.
And sometimes you're just drunk and then you just say words and then you just have conversations with people.
I like it. Anyway, I like to talk Salt Lake City on podcasts. I know you haven't been here super long.
Yeah.
But say you were bringing a family member here. And to check out the city, and you're like,
my mom just came.
Okay, so you wanted to give her a tour of Salt Lake?
Yeah,
you wanted to show her around town.
I did.
What are a few things you showed her, or that you think people should go check out? Because again, I have people, they listen to the show, they're moving here, they're visiting. Right. What are some things that Mishell would say? So we took her to. You gotta go check this out.
Yeah, we took her to the Salt Lake, and I was working for most of it, so.
You didn't take the time off of work for your mom?
No. But she's used to that. A lot of times, she used to visit me in California, and I would just be like, okay, you're going to go to Universal Studios by yourself for a couple days. Have fun, Mom. And she was like, all right, you got to do what you got to do. It's totally fine. You'll be you. You got to work. I understand. My mom's Italian from Brooklyn. And so when she came here, we took her to Temple Square, and we introduced her to the Mormons, which were interesting, and she was asking them a million questions. And
You're like, Mom, you're embarrassing me.
no, I was fine with it. And she was like, so how does this relate to Catholicism? Oh, okay. So like, this is like your bishop. Okay. I understand. All right. So these are like the disciples. Yeah, sure. Okay. So like, how far can you get if you're a woman? Okay. So they're like nuns. So you can't get very far. Okay. I understand. So like, it's the priests that do everything. They get, through the hierarchy and stuff. All right. And so she was like asking them all these questions. It was great. And for most of it, we just walked around and asked people, because most of the missionaries, they have a flag, and it's on their name tag. And so we would just go up to them and she'd say, where are you from? I don't recognize that flag. And they'd say, oh, I am from Zimbabwe. And she'd be like, oh, that's nice. Bye. And we'd walk away. So we did that for like,
She was just questioning people.
yeah, we did that for like a good hour, and it was entertaining and fun.
Any other places that you took your show?
We took her to Park City and we walked around that area, and that place is really cool. She saw me play. She was here for that. And we took her to... We probably should have taken her more places.
Yeah. What about
we took her up to a play. All we did was just
Yeah.
arty stuff. We took her to a play up in Centerville, and we went around there.
Have you ventured much to the north or south, like Utah County or up to Ogden? Just even just as I'm curious what you think of those areas.
Yeah, so I've
Because they're
done-
different. They're different than Salt Lake.
They are. I haven't gone up to Ogden as much. We went down to Provo a couple times. I've done a few comedy shows down there, and people are so nice.
Okay.
Everyone's so nice. And then after the show, a couple people will usually come up to me and say, "Hey, I listened to your show." And they look around, but I don't tell anyone. And I'm like, okay.
Your radio show.
My radio show.
Really?
Yeah. Because I guess we're risque.
Down in Provo.
Yeah. And so I'm like, cool. I won't tell anyone either. Thanks for letting me know.
Oh, wow.
It's adorable. I love it.
It doesn't surprise me. What about local eating spots? I'm sure you have a few favorite places in town.
I like to eat specific things on specific days.
Sure.
And so Tuesday is pizza day. And so we
Not Taco Day?
no, pizza day.
Okay.
Yeah. Monday is chicken. So I'm going to have some sort of chicken tonight. Or I shouldn't say that, right? Because this airs on Sundays.
No, it might. We could record it on Mondays. That's fine.
So Monday is chicken, Tuesday is pizza, Wednesday is beef, Thursday is pasta, Friday is fish, Saturday is leftovers, and then Sunday I go crazy and I just go out somewhere to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm an obsessive compulsive person.
So any
It's a
favorite local
disorder.
eating places? Then? Like, I mean, not that I expect that you eat out all the time, but I'm sure you got a few favorite
Yeah,
places.
I like Lucky 13.
Okay.
Their burgers are awesome.
Yeah.
I like the pie and the pie hole.
Okay. The pie hole is good. 2 a.m. after a few drinks, you got to soak up the drinks and before you stumble home.
I like Mesquite. It is a Mexican restaurant
Okay.
on State. There's
Yes.
a couple of them. They're
Yes.
open 24 hours.
Okay, I know. That
is a great place to go. Like if you have just gotten out of a show or you're just
Yeah.
up at 3:00 in the morning doing who knows what, they are open and they are tasty. They will meet your needs. And there's a couple of places that I just don't know what they're
No,
called.
and I know. I always, it's that way. I put people on the spot.
Yeah,
and,
there's a great Thai place that we just went to, and I can't for the life of me tell you what it's called, but it's darn tasty.
Do you remember where it was?
No, because I don't pay attention to things. I get lost.
What did you think of
very
the grid
easily.
system when you came here? Was
I
that weird?
No, I like
Okay,
it.
okay.
I like it a lot. My GPS doesn't know what's going on a lot of the times.
They always give you road names too, and you're like, I don't know it by that road
Turn
name.
left on 3300 south, then turn right on 900 east. When you get to 30, it's just numbers. It
Yeah.
just spews numbers at you, and usually
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, shut up.
Yeah.
But I love it because it's just so easy. Okay, great. 33 south. Oh, wonderful. I'm going to 39. That's 6 blocks. Perfect. I love it.
Oh, it's a great. I mean, once you figure it out,
Yeah.
you're golden. You're in. You're
Bunches of oats.
Awesome.
I'm a fan.
Well, what's in store for Mishell? Anything coming up that you want to like promote or anything that you like? Do you see yourself doing radio forever? I mean, what's coming up?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to ride it out until
See what's
it's
going on.
not beneficial anymore. I think the goal is to get to that, Casey Kasem, Ryan Seacrest, where you're you've still got your radio show, but then you're also doing television and you're also producing shows and you're doing films and you're just
Do a podcast.
blowing up. Yeah,
Do a podcast.
Maybe I should.
Like you can even do it like as an offshoot of your morning radio. As you know, I know a lot of radio hosts that do podcasts.
Podcasts are so complicated though, because you have to have a specific. I was going to say a specificity. I don't know what I was going to say.
A specific like niche.
Yeah.
Kind of I beg to differ there. I know a lot of people that just get on the podcast, they get drunk, and they just bullshit. And I'm not saying that's good podcasting, but
Sure.
I know that that's what some people, you know, or they'll just sit and talk movies, or they'll talk music, or they'll talk about their life.
Right.
You know, they'll just interview anybody they find fascinating. I mean, you got great hookups at the radio with people coming through. I mean,
I'd love to do stuff with like PBS or NPR.
Sure.
I'd love to talk to scientists and figure out why things work.
the world, you know, it can handle it. You know, I think bring it on. How can people find you? What's like websites?
Oh, you said what
Facebook?
am I working on?
Oh,
So
we're working on. Yeah.
I'm recording an album right now. So I have a joke band, and we're called Abandom, which is a random band with my fiance, and
we didn't even talk about this.
Yeah, and-
I didn't know about it.
and so I sing and write songs, and then he usually writes the
Like
music.
a Weird Al type thing, or
Not necessarily Weird Al. We don't do parodies. It's more like Bare Naked Ladies or They Might Be Giants, where you listen to it and you go, "Oh, that's clever," and maybe you slap your knee,
and can people listen to the music? Is
but
it
you don't
online
hysterically
at all?
laugh. Yes. So we're currently recording we're recording 8 songs, and they should be out by the end of the year. And we are Abandom. It's
Facebook on Facebook? No. Okay.
Abandon, but with an M, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay. So let's run down the list. So find them on Facebook. What about some of your links?
Me, I am. If you Google Mishell Livio, you'll find me.
Everything.
I go by the Entertaintress because I sing and I dance, and I'm anemic, but I try to do physical things.
And
I
give the
look
spelling of your name, because I mean I know how to spell it, but for people listening, because it's spelled differently.
Yeah, Mishell.
Okay.
So Mishell, Livio, or if you want to get like real Italian, Livio, which is Livio.
Excellent. So Google you. I'll try to get some of the main links up on the website with this. Are you on Twitter?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get your Twitter on there and Facebook and all that good stuff. Anything else you want to chat about before we close out here? Anything else I didn't bring up that you're like, oh, I want to talk about this, Chris?
Oh, well, I did want to talk about the meaning of life, but it's just
Well, we can get into that.
like it's so complicated. Like time, does it exist? Is it all at the same time? I don't know. It's all in the third dimension. Is now actually now, or is I feel like we're all in every choice that you make like creates a parallel dimension, and therefore all of these dimensions are happening at the same time. And so if the possibilities are infinite.
We can start a part 2 of this recording here if you want. But
No.
anyway,
For another time, I'll come back.
awesome. Thank you so much, Mishell. It's been great chatting with you. And
This was fun.
Yeah, 94.9 Mondays through Fridays, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. They can catch you.
Yes.
If you're here in Utah, outside of Utah, online or no?
Online, alt949.com.
Okay.
FML with Fook and Michelle.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, many thanks goes out to Mishell Livio for coming on this episode of the podcast. You can find all the show notes at iamsaltlake.com/184. Reach out to her. Let her know you heard her on this episode. Tell her what you thought. I'd also love to know your thoughts by dropping me an email at iamsaltlake@gmail.com. Tell me what you think of this episode or any of the other episodes of I Am Salt Lake, or if maybe you even want to come on a future episode if you're doing something really cool here in Salt Lake City. Hey, listen up. There's a few ways you can help out support the podcast. Any support is much appreciated. Much love to those of you that have supported the podcast. First and foremost, you can donate to the podcast. I have some different monthly donor levels. You can find it at iamsaltlake.com/donate, where you could set it up and donate as little as $5 a month. Helps keep the podcast alive, helps keep it moving forward, helps with all the podcasting fees, the web hosting, the audio hosting, any new equipment that I might need to buy. For as little as $5, your support is very much appreciated. You can also make a one-time donation as well if you just want to make a one-time donation to the podcast. That is very much appreciated. But listen, the podcast is still going to be free. Even if you can't donate, even if you decide not to donate, the podcast will continue to be free. These are just ways you can help become a more or less sponsor of the podcast, help keep it moving forward with funds. You can find that at iamsaltlake.com/donate. Also, a way you can support the podcast is by sharing any of your favorite episodes with your family and friends on any social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, however, whatever social media sites you use, make sure to share your favorite episodes. Let them find out about the podcast. You can also leave a review in iTunes. That helps boost the ratings, gets the podcast exposed to more people. Plus, it gives me an opportunity to find out what you think of the podcast. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Mishell Livio, she was great. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying all the episodes of I Am Salt Lake. Mark on your calendars, October 16th, I Am Salt Lake Live, Club 50 West, right in downtown Salt Lake City. You can find out more about that if you were connected to I Am Salt Lake on Facebook, so make sure to like the page there. Drop me an email. Love to know your thoughts on this podcast. I'd love to stay connected with each and every one of you. So I got a brand new episode each and every week. My name is Chris Hollifield. You guys get out and enjoy the city. Buy local, support local, and we'll catch you guys again next week.